To move us out of executive session. Is there a second? Second. All in favor of leaving executive session? Aye. All right, we just were in executive session post our police commission meeting, so we have already called the roll, so I will now ask Esther Baylor to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, a few announcements and then a few presentations. First announcement, we will be having a public hearing on July 23rd at 8:05 p.m. for proposed zone change for vacant property located at the corner of Manor Boulevard and 268 North Middletown Road from CS to R15. Then we will have a continuation of a public hearing on that same day at 8:15 p.m., that's July 23rd, for the proposed zone change for 576 Route 303 and adjoining properties. Also, our weekly announcement, or every meeting announcement, the Town of Orangetown and Provo Chamber of Commerce Farmers Market is continuing every Sunday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Goes all the way through the tail end of November, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. on North William Street between Washington Avenue and Central Avenue in Pearl River. They've got a lot of good vendors. There's been more vendors each week, so please get on over if you have not been there. Okay, so we have a few presentations. We're going to have one for a national champion, one from the Pearl River TOD design, and then one for our annual audit. And then finally, we will have a presentation or petition for a zone change. So, Pearl River High School, where are our? In the back. There, hello. All right. Pearl River High School, we have if Coach Shannon Flood, is she here? You want to step up real quick and you can come up to here. So maybe stand up in front of everyone for a second, because it's only the one certificate. Usually we have a whole team, but this is an individual accomplishment here. So I'm going to let you stand in front for a minute. Can you confirm your first name pronunciation? Ciara? Kira, okay, making sure. I should, I'm Irish, but I'm not that Irish. Kira Durkin. She's the national high school champion in the 3,000 meter race walk, the national champion, the entire country of the United States of America, the highest one we've given out so far to anyone. So round of applause. Congratulations. So it's kind of a small token compared to what I'm sure was a really large trophy or medal you got. But we got you a certificate, Kira, and we also got Shannon, your coach, a certificate as well, in honor of your achievements. So congratulations. Thank you for representing the town so well. Once you're done shaking hands, just stand in the middle so you can get a photo with everyone and the two of you in the front.
He's the athletic director at Provo High School, Artie Corman.
And the athletic director from Pearl River is here, Artie. Everyone just give a good smile. And
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Get the picture.
Yeah, get one with you in it, yeah. All right. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. All right. Next, let's go with our boring or one. No offense to our auditors one first. I don't think anyone's jumping at the bits to get that one listened to. So Nick, if you want to go ahead and lead off with our audit, we'll get through that. Yeah, we want to make sure everyone has to sit through this one. And I know you're an exciting two presenters, but it's just dry subject matter, so we'll lead with you.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor, members of the Town Board. My name is Nicholas DeSantis. I'm with the firm PKF O'Connor Davies, and with me is my partner, Rob Danielle, and we're here this evening to present the Town of Orangetown's comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year ended December 31st, 2018. You have before you a spiral-bound book, and then you have a pamphlet-type book, and I'll explain which ones we're going to work from in a moment. We're first going to start with the spiral-bound book, and if you would turn to page Roman numeral 10. Page Roman numeral 10 contains a certificate of achievement for excellence in financial reporting presented to the Town of Orangetown for participating in a national program sponsored by the Government Finance Officers Association. And it's a kudo to this town board and your finance department and your controller, Jeff Bensick, for presenting information in accordance with the standards set nationally for government entities. Not many municipalities in the state of New York are participating or getting this type of an award. So again, it should be something that the town board is very proud of. If we turn 2 pages beyond the certificate of achievement, we have what's the Independence Auditor's Report. This is our opinion on your financial statements, and you could see in the first paragraph, it indicates what you engage us to do, and you engage us to audit the financial statements of government activities, business-type activities, discretely presented component unit, you have one, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information for the Town of Orangetown for the year ended December 31st, 2018, as well as the notes to the financial statements. The financial statements obviously are the responsibility of your town controller, and it says that in the second paragraph. Our responsibility is to express an opinion on the financial statements based upon doing an examination. We did not audit the financial statements of the Orangetown Housing Authority. That's a component unit, but we relied upon the opinion of the auditor selected by that organization. We conducted our audit in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States. The audit involves performing procedures to obtain audit evidence about the amounts and disclosures in the financial statements, and that last line on that first page indicates that we obtain sufficient evidence to express an opinion. And if you turn the page, at the top of the next page, we issue our opinion, which basically is an unmodified opinion that your financial statements comply, and it's what's known as a clean opinion. With that said, we're going to turn to the pamphlet book, and we'll briefly, we've extracted some information from the spiral book to help you understand your finances in a brief period. So, Rob, would you begin that?
Yeah, thank you, Nick. I'm going to turn, if you turn to page 5 of the pamphlet, I'll briefly run over one of the town's major funds, the general fund. Page 5, you can see there are 4 columns there. Your original budget is what the town board adopted in the winter or sometime in December of 2017. And again, from an aggregate standpoint, your total revenues, $13.4 million. Your total expenditures are $14.1 million. Bringing you to a shortfall of about $717,000. You factor in some other financing sources, some transfers, and you see the line that says net change in fund balance. The bracketed $786,717. There's 2 components to that. A small piece, $86,717, are encumbrances, and the $700,000 is what the town utilized in 2017 from its own fund balance, from its own resources to balance the 2018 budget. The middle column is your final budget. There are adjustments during the year that are made. The big change there is your transfer out in the middle of the page, the $3.6 million. If you recall, last year, the town sold a piece of property for about $7.5 million. There was some debt related to that sale. That money was reserved last year. The funds were transferred over to pay down some bonds. So that was the significant change in your final budget. And from an actual standpoint up top, you can see your revenues pretty much came in on target from your adopted and final budget, as well as your expenditures within what your actual expenditures were comparable to your final budget. Again, if you look at the net change in fund balance, you can see that your expenditures exceeded your revenues, due in part to that transfer of $3.6 million, which was planned. That money was set aside last year. So you subtract the 4.3 from your opening fund balance of 11.9, and you end the year at 7.5, and we'll discuss the components of that $7.5 million. So from a budgetary standpoint, again, that net change in fund balance, you anticipated using the $4.3 million, and you did use the $4.3 million. So from a budgetary standpoint, you pretty much broke even.
They stayed within the parameters of the budget.
Correct.
Page 6 is just an analysis of those revenues, some of the large revenues. So we're not going to delve into that, but it's there for your information on page 6, how those revenues, and there's an explanation right on the bottom of the page on the revenues. Is there anything that you wanted to add on that, on page 6?
No, that's just, like I said, you pretty much broke even. There are different variances in different categories,
Right.
but you broke even.
Right, and what we've done on page 7 is we extrapolated some information from the statistical section of your comprehensive annual report and given you a 5-year history of some of the larger revenues for the town. So it's, it's something that might even be helpful to you as you approach your budget season. When we get to page 8, Rob?
Yeah, page 8 is your expenditures. Again, as I said, pretty much break even compared to your final budget. That's really it. And page 9, as Nick mentioned, is a 5-year comparison of your major expenditures, extracted just the large ones. Again, this is for informational purposes. Page 10 is your general fund balance, and again, it's a 5-year look back. We're going to focus on the 2018 column. As you can see, your total fund balance is the $7.5 million that I mentioned. Your unassigned fund balance is $6.2 million. If we move up, you could see under the assigned column, subsequent years' expenditures, you're utilizing $1 million to balance the current budget you're in, the 2019 budget.
Yeah, if I may, just make a note on the side of that page. Look at page 43 of the spiral book. All the definitions of those fund balance categories are defined on page 43. So at your leisure, you can read that on page 43.
Right. And then page 11 is just the graph that shows your unassigned fund balance as a percentage of your total general fund expenditures. And again, if you look on, we did it a 5-year comparison. It's been trending upwards over the past 4 years, beginning in 2014, with a spike in 2017 due to the sale of the real property. And although it has declined in 2008, it still exceeds what the government finance officer's recommendations are for having a percentage of fund balance. So again, if you look at page 10 at the bottom, your unassigned fund balance is 43%, which the Government Finance Officers Association says you should have probably 2 months' worth of expenditures in there for unanticipated, and you're well beyond that. So a very healthy fund balance.
Now, pages.
Sorry, what is the percentage that's recommended?
The Government Finance Officer recommends 2 months of your annual expenditures.
Okay, it turns out to be.
I believe it was,
Right.
right.
Yeah. 1/6.
Right.
Yeah, but there's one thing, you can't use the, I always debate what is always recommended, because every municipality has different issues. You go to a village, villages are the older entities, they have more emergencies that may happen and you can't plan for, you need to have fund balance. Towns may get hit with tax certiorari's, you need to have a place to meet those expenses. So it's a good rule of thumb, but you know your operations, and based upon those operations, that's how you should guide utilizing your fund balance. Because remember one thing, and most of you are businessmen or have been in business, fund balance is your working capital. It helps you avoid having to borrow money for operational needs when you don't have to. So for instance, tax anticipation notes, I don't think they're using any of them here, do they?
No.
Right? So some municipalities don't have fund balance or enough, and they have to borrow tax anticipation notes until their property taxes are collected, and they incur interest. So even though 16% is a nice little rule of thumb, you know what? It's an embarrassment of riches to have money to keep stability in your town, to keep property taxes level. You don't go into spikes. You don't run into any unanticipated issues that you don't have the resources to address. So that's what I usually advise my clients.
Well, either way, we're pretty good as far as fund balance.
Oh, you're in
at
good
the-
shape.
At the level that we're at,
Yes.
regardless of what is the recommended or non-recommended. We're in good shape.
Yep. If we go to page, I guess, want to go to town outside villages and just go to the revenues and expenses?
Yeah, well, if you go to page 13, there's a town outside villages fund for police and then other. Page 13 is the police. You can see revenues came in better than budget by almost $800,000, and your expenditures did better than budget by about $243,000. You did have expenditures that exceeded revenue slightly by $87,000. You subtract that from your opening fund balance of $975,000, you end the year at $888,000.
Pretty much a break even, right?
Yes, break-even year.
And there's a description on the bottom that would help you later on understand some of those areas.
Page 14 is the TOV Other Fund. Also had a pretty good year. As you can see, your revenues exceeded the budget by $1.5 million. And those are your permit fees. There's an explanation at the bottom. You did exceed the budget by almost $1.5 million on those permits, due in part to a one-time fee of $1.2 million from JP Morgan Chase for a new commercial development at the psychiatric center. But again, your revenues exceeded your expenditures by $1.5 million. You're able to add that to your opening fund balance of $2.1 million. So again, you end the year at $3.6 million. A rather healthy fund balance. You are utilizing $500,000 of that fund balance to balance the current budget year in 2019. Page 15 and 16 are, again, five-year histories of your town outside villages for informational purposes.
And page 17 is the fund balance, and if you look at the 2018 column, as Rob indicated, to balance the 19 budget, you use $500,000, and you could see that that number is fourth number up from the bottom on the 2018 column. So again, the fund balance in this particular fund is also well represented and healthy.
Page 19, just want to mention a couple other funds. Sewer fund, that ended the year with expenditures that exceeded revenues by $1.1 million. So that ends, the sewer fund has a fund balance of just under $600,000. The town is utilizing $200,000 of that money to balance the current budget you're in. Jeff is closely monitoring the sewer fund so that these expenses don't exceed revenues in the current year. The highway fund, also part-town and town-wide, had a good year as well, ended with revenues that exceeded expenditures by almost $500,000 and has a healthy fund balance, $2.3 million. Debt service fund, again, those funds are set aside, restricted for debt, and that fund balance is $2.2 million. And you have a rather large capital projects fund. There's approximately 26 active projects. That fund balance is $7.9 million. The town did issue $8.2 million in bonds in 2018 for governmental activity. Page 20 and 21 is your enterprise funds, your Blue Hill Golf Course. Quickly, I'm just going to run at page 21. At the top, you can see that your operating revenues are down about $200,000, mainly your green fees, and that's all weather-related. Your expenditures also had a slight drop of about $200,000. So you ended the year with income from operations of about $237,000. You factor in some other non-operating revenues and expenditures, and the Blue Hill Golf Course Fund had a change in net position of about $331,000 in the current year. Broad Acres, on the other hand, if you turn to page 23, also saw a shortfall in green fees and had some one-time revenues in 2017 that didn't appear in 2018. So those revenues are down about $160,000. Operating expenses are up about $27,000. So the Broad Acres Golf Course had a loss from operations of about $231,000. The good news is that there was a transfer into this fund of about $2.3 million from that sale of property to pay off the Broad Acres outstanding bonds. And lastly, the town is self-insured for its workers' compensation and general liability. On page 25, it's its workers' compensation. You can see in the operating revenues, there are what we call charges for services. These are operating funds contributing their proportionate share to fund the workers' comp payments. That is up about $250,000, and the town has been increasing those charges on an annual basis to gradually cover the long-term liabilities and its unrestricted deficit positions. Expenditures are also up, and these employee benefits, payment of claims, those are up about $550,000. And insurance expenditures are up about $100,000. So the workers' comp had a loss for the year of about $313,000 and unrestricted deficit position of $1.9 million. But if you turn to page 24, you can see that some of the deficit results from we accrue a liability based on an actuarial report. $2.1 million are long-term liabilities are going to happen down the road. So if you back that out, you're pretty much break even. If it wasn't break even, we would address this and ask the other funds to contribute.
The Workers' Compensation Fund as an internal service fund is on full accrual accounting, different than your general fund and your town outside villages fund. So all liabilities have to be estimated and reflected in the financial statements, even those that haven't resulted in a cash disbursement yet. And that's what Rob is speaking of.
And then page 27 is your risk retention fund, your general liability. Same thing on 27, your revenues are slightly down. Your charges for services about $90,000 or so. Expenses are pretty consistent. You end the year with a deficit of $368,000. And as I mentioned before, the long-term piece is roughly about the same, $364,000. So when you net the two, you're pretty much break even. As Nick mentioned, those long-term liabilities have to be accounted for on an accrual basis, but those based on the actuarial study, but those expenses haven't occurred yet. So yes, they are accrued in the fund, but they haven't been paid out and may not be paid out for a number of years. And then lastly, on page 28, as I mentioned, the town did issue $8.2 million of bonds, strictly bonds. You can see on the schedule, the town has $64 million in bonds outstanding. We are required to report the bond payments over the next 5 years, and then in increments of 5 years, the chart below. And you can see in 2019, your debt service requirements are about $7 million, and compared to your overall budget of about $74.5 million, it's roughly about 9% of your budget is debt service requirements.
So all in all, the financial statements, I think, bode well for the town. Your financial condition is very good. Rob, did we find any deficiencies in internal controls?
There were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies that we found. We did have a couple of recommendations to improve internal controls that I believe you have a separate report for. And we also audit the Justice Court and issue a separate report that I believe you have as well.
With that said, we'd invite any questions, Mr. Sir.
Great. Questions, gentlemen?
Good, good, thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, some time ago, we hired Mazer Consulting to do a sort of a hypothetical downtown TOD zone for Pearl River that we can then use as a starting point for public hearings and discussion. Nanuet just had their TOD zone passed by the Clarkstown Town Board, so we're kind of moving along with ours as well. Again, I want to emphasize this is a starting point for discussions. We just have something that we can then put forward to public hearing and get as much public comment and as many revisions as we and the public would like. So I'm going to invite Marcia from Mazer Consulting and anyone else from Mazer who needs to chime in at any point to go ahead and take the podium and go on from there.
Okay, good evening. My name is Marcia Schiffman.
We can't hear you back there.
Okay. Good evening.
It was right.
Better? My name is Marcia Schiffman. I'm from Mazer Consulting. I'm here with my associates Nabil and Sal. And going to be giving a presentation on the work that we've done on the Pearl River Transit-Oriented Development District Ordinance. And we also have brought some boards for the board's review that shows some of the maps that we've done as part of the ordinance work. The first one is an aerial map which shows a quarter of a mile circle around the train station, and a quarter of a mile is a typical distance that one uses when you're looking at a transit-oriented development for walking distance. The red line, if you can make it out on the aerial, is the proposed transit-oriented development district zone boundary. It encompasses about 81 acres, about 171 properties. Wrong way, sorry. It runs from Route 304 Pearl Street here. Here is the railroad line. Here is Central Avenue, Main Street here. This road is Washington, and this is Franklin, and Madison Avenue. Madison Avenue. So those are generally the boundaries. On the east side, it goes up to John Street. I have some pictures, and those were part of the design guidelines of the of downtown Pearl River, which is part of the zoning, and it's really a mix of uses and mix of buildings, 1-, 2-, and 3-story buildings, and there are a number of older Italianate-style historic buildings, type buildings in the downtown. This is one of the newer buildings in downtown Pearl River with the Muse, which was part of an old theater redevelopment. And the district also includes the land to the west of the railroad tracks, which includes along Central Avenue, retail and restaurant uses on one side. However, most of that area between Route 304 and the railroad are light industrial, warehousing, some office uses in that area, and these show some examples of that. There are a number of public facilities in the proposed zone, a park, the railroad station, fire station, public parking, recreational fields as well. So there's really a mix of uses within the proposed TOD district. This shows, it's a map showing existing land uses again. Again, the red line is the district boundaries, Central Avenue, and you can see Central Avenue. The red lots are primarily retail, commercial. The blue, which you can see scattered throughout the district, are public lands, the fire station, parks, parking lots, like there is a parking lot off Central Avenue in the downtown. And on the west side of the railroad, which is here, you can see these big blue properties. Those are the larger industrial properties, including Dexter Plaza in the district. So there's really a variety of uses. Most of the lots, with the exception of those sort of on the west of the railroad are small lots. West of the railroad are much larger lots, which we looked at as part of the zoning. The basis, you have a planning basis for this zone. Back in 2003, Pearl River downtown was looked at. Also, back last November 2018, there was quite an extensive study done of transit-oriented development opportunities analysis, which basically said the hamlet is well positioned for a kind of infill redevelopment, especially around the station. However, the scale must be in keeping with the community character. And I think that's what, when we were developing the zoning and the design guidelines, that was a key component, looking at and making it fit within the community character. These are a list of goals that are part of the zoning, using the train station as a catalyst, promoting redevelopment of a diverse variety of uses, including residential, looking at guiding development according to a plan with mixed, compatible, and complementary land uses, providing design guidelines so that the development would fit and enhance the character of the district, and then finally to preserve and conserve, protect and conserve the value and encourage revitalization. And this is the zone district map. Again, 304 is on the top, John Street is the boundary on the eastern edge. There are three, I would call them subzones, a mixed-use residential zone and an office residential zone. And within each of these three zones, there are levels. And the idea was that the density, primarily residential improvements that would be permitted within the district, would be less dense in the level 1, and as it got to the level 2, more dense, and level 3, higher residential density. So there's a gradual growth in the residential development within the zone. Now, what does the map show? It shows, here's Central Avenue. The purple and the dark purple, that is the mixed-use residential zones. This is mixed-use residential 1, encompassing a small area off of Central Avenue. Along Central Avenue, this darker purple area is mixed-use residential 2. And then finally, the area from Main Street west to 304, encompassing the park, the train station, and Dexter Plaza would be mixed-use residential 3, and I'll explain what that means in a minute. The others, the bracketing zones on either side in the lighter beige and yellow are the office residential zones. And underneath, if you can see, there are green boundaries. There are five existing zones that will be now incorporated within the TOD zones. Most of them are retail or commercial or light industrial zones. There are some limited areas along Washington Avenue here and off of Franklin, which are currently within a RG zone, which we're proposing to be within the TOD zone. Those areas in particular have a mix of uses, including non-residential uses within them, and that's why the zone has incorporated them. Okay, so I want to explain a little bit about the zones. This is mixed-use residential, level 1, 2, and 3. Permitted uses are retail, personal service, business, professional, offices, banks, public uses, similar to the uses that are currently permitted in the retail zone in the downtown. Also, multifamily uses would be permitted. There are a number of conditional uses. Some are new, including a farmer's market, child and adult daycare, parking structures. Accessory uses are included, pretty typical for this area. One new one, outdoor dining, and the ordinance has specific standards for that. And finally, the ordinance provides a list of excluded retail uses. These are uses that should not typically be put within a transit-oriented district where you're looking at more pedestrian-friendly, walking to the train station, walking around the downtown. For example, drive-in restaurants would not be permitted, or gas stations not be permitted. But there's a number of uses that we felt were not appropriate. So that's the mixed-use residential zone. And then there's the office residential zone. Office residential zone would not permit retail or personal service. It would permit business, offices, banks, public uses, and also residential. Conditional uses are more limited. It does include data centers as a conditional use, and then typical accessory uses. The ordinance has a lot of other regulations. I've tried to highlight some of ones that I think are more interesting. One is the recommendation to limit the size of businesses, individual businesses. You could have a large building that's subdivided, but within it, the idea is to limit the business's size. And the idea is you really don't want a major warehouse, retail warehouse in your downtown, like Walmart or Costco or Home Depot. Those can go elsewhere in the town. But for the downtown, you're really looking at smaller businesses, 5,000 square foot maximum, which would be a reasonable sized business, typically in a downtown or even in a shopping center. There are very specific residential use standards. It would only permit multifamily use, not single family or two family. It would require that residential uses be part of a mixed-use building in the level 1 and level 2 zones. It would limit the size of the apartments, and it would limit the number of bedrooms. The idea is to provide for smaller apartments within this TOD area, to encourage that, and to have no units larger than 3 bedrooms, larger than 2 bedrooms. And finally, the unique part of this TOD zone is design guidelines, which would be adopted as part of the ordinance. And they're an appendix to the zoning, which you've gotten a copy of, draft. Okay, I just want to talk a little bit about residential. There are 3 levels, I said. The least dense would be 5 units per acre maximum, and it would be permitted only in that zone. That would be the MUR1 or TOD1 zone. Permits 2 stories. Only the second floor could have residential. The first floor would have to be non-residential use. The MUR2, the level 2 zones in both the mixed-use residential and the office residential would allow slightly higher density and would be permitted 3 stories. The upper 2 stories could have residential use. Not on the first floor, though. The intent is to keep that mixed use. The area west of the railroad, between the railroad and 304, Route 304, that's the larger area with larger lots that really provides an opportunity for new development, new redevelopment. There are larger lots there, they could accommodate greater use. So a maximum density of 15 dwelling units per acre and 3 floors are permitted. It could be residential on all 3 floors, residential development on none of the floors. So the residential density is related to the permitted floors. There are parking requirements provided. It's reduced parking standards just for this TOD zone because it is supposed to be a transit-oriented development, people coming and using the train, using the bus. There is a unique way of handling the parking. One, it can be built on-site, underground, or within the building. It also, as an alternative, can be, alternatively, the parking spaces can be, there can be a contribution of $15,000 per space to fund municipal parking areas. And that would apply to the level 1 and level 2 subzones.
Just to clarify, because parking's in it,
Yes.
basically, in TOD 3, the more dense areas, they would not have the option of not providing parking and paying. They'd have to provide it on site. And the other 2 one-story and 2-story residential ones, which are already in already developed areas, they would have the option of paying for the parking as
Right.
opposed to providing on site because it may not be physically possible.
Yes,
Okay.
the TOD 3 and TOD MU R3 and OR 3, they're larger lots. We thought they could accommodate parking on site. You know, if you know Pearl River, the rest of the development is very small lots and limited space for parking. So the idea is, let's build parking to serve the downtown. $15,000 per space is not it's a reasonable number, let me put it that way, to provide parking. There's also, if for existing development, and this is something that we talked a lot about when we were developing the zoning, existing development, the parking would be grandfathered. So if you have existing building and you want to expand it, your existing parking would be grandfathered and you would have to incorporate parking for the new development, new square footage.
So like if there's a current storefront that requires 3 parking spots, and so, they have no parking for that storefront, but they want to add 2 levels of apartments, they'd have to add parking for the apartments, but it wouldn't affect the spots allocated for the existing storefront.
Exactly.
That hasn't changed,
Yes,
or
exactly.
restate it so it's clear.
Thank you.
No problem.
Just one question.
Yes.
If everyone in the zone decided they wanted on-street parking at $15,000, do we have enough parking spots downtown to accommodate that?
That would have to be looked at. I know you have municipal lots downtown and municipal land
I think we have
downtown. You'd-
With it,
We need to know that answer before we can vote on this, though.
I think well, we're not going to vote anytime soon,
No, I'm just
obviously.
saying.
I think the intent is that we would have to acquire a lot then. That's whether you take the money and you buy property to put a lot in, or you create more space on lots you own already. That's the goal. Whether or not there's geography that, or a lot we have in mind for that, I don't know. But that's the purpose of the 15, because just like when they did the theater, there literally was none when they put it in. But the purpose is to create a fund that you basically find acreage to purchase and pave and make a municipal lot.
Right, to buy land or use existing land and build up,
Right.
you know. There's also, did I? Yeah. As part of the ordinance, there's a table that has the bulk regulations. I just highlighted some key findings on that, and we can, if you have any questions, we can talk about that later. If it's an existing property and there's no change in the footprint, those properties would be grandfathered. Also, the front yard setbacks are really structured to require that new buildings come close to the street like the existing development does. There's a buffer required where the zone abuts a residential zone, 25 feet. And also there's maximum building heights and residential use, which for example, the mixed-use residential first level, it's really 2 stories. The second level would be up to 3 stories or 45 feet, and there are buildings of that height in the downtown. And the third level, again, the maximum is 3 stories or 45 feet. I'd like to then sort of go into the design guidelines if there.
Yeah, I think probably for this, just the visuals would be best, but just to summarize before we move to that, looking at the map, basically, is a lot of abbreviations being thrown around, so I want to make sure it's kind of put into like regular personese, I guess.
Sorry.
So basically, there is 3 levels of density, starting towards John Street. It will permit within a block of Central, north and south, 1 level of apartments above existing commercial use, or above a level of commercial use, so 2 total stories, 1 level of apartment. Then after that zone, getting further to the west, you have an area that permits 2 residential levels above a level of commercial. And then once you get towards the actual train station in the area that's now like Dexter and that mess of places where people park landscaping trucks and plumbers' parts, that becomes still 3 floors, potentially a little taller if they have parking under it, but the first floor can also just be purely residential, which allows 3 levels of residential, approximately the same building height. And the density is 5 units per floor per acre, with a minimum lot size that guarantees you, 0.1, that guarantees you 2 units per floor. And then alternatively, for usage, essentially the strip along Central Avenue and a little bit wider along the train station area allows the type of stuff you see in a downtown right now, the bars, the restaurants, the this, the that, the shops, all those things. And then a border around that, buffering Washington and Franklin, is a more office space and banks as the permitted commercial uses. One thing I did notice on the map, and I probably should have called it when we were going through before you presented, there is a strip on the northern side of Central that is already bars and restaurants between Railroad and Pearl and 304 that should also be the mixed use. That's where the saloon is. Right now we have it, this map at least shows it as office use, which would be kind of silly, but that was just a line on the map that was different.
It's too complicated. Well, that's certainly easy to.
Yeah, it's just moving a
change.
line. It doesn't change the definition of the zone. So
On
is
the
everyone
on the
clear
other
on that portion? Because this is going to be a more visual part where it's like what it could look like. Good.
Yes.
All right, so go ahead and show us the visuals. And
Okay, yes.
this is an appearance code that goes along with this essentially.
Right, and this would be an appendix to the ordinance. It basically talks about the design principles. It also has guidelines. In the guidelines, there's the language of shall, which would be should include, and should, which is more, shall is it's mandatory, should is more flexible. And that would be something, it's for, as the planning board reviews applications, this provides some flexibility in terms of architecture and design, which is important. The design guidelines include all of these elements. I'm going to highlight a few of them as in the presentation. Architectural design, the recommendation is to require high-quality materials, no vinyl siding or wood siding, but brick and mortar and stone. Looking at the base of the building, the body of the building, and the cap of the building. There are very specific standards in terms of how the windows should be designed, how the facade should be designed. The roof, for example, we're looking at keeping, if you recall, the buildings in Pearl River, a lot of the historic buildings have a flat front with a cornice, similar to this building. It would require that. However, it would permit a dormers or a pitched roof if it's not seen from the street. And I've seen this done effectively in other towns. We looked at design guidelines for entrances to improve the street frontage, building transparency, how the windows on retail uses on the low first floor should be designed with percentage of glass, type of awnings that are recommended, and balconies for residential uses would be permitted,
Just
but
to be clear,
limited.
these are example photos that fit the written out guidelines that she's talking about. It's just easier to see it, like, they're not all necessarily Pro River, obviously, but the sort of
Right.
things that, yeah. So that in case right now just awnings, balconies and such, so, go on, sorry.
Right, and then there's a very detailed section on signage, wall signs, hanging signs, awning signs, window signs, and very detailed standards for that. Standards for monument signs. The guidelines permit monument signs, but only in the level 3, the larger area, the mixed-use residential 3 and office 3 zone. The signage here are directory signs, which may be needed, so there's an example of that. And the guidelines also suggest, and it's something the town board should look at, is developing wayfinding signage for Pearl River, and these are some examples of that. There's a section on circulation. The intent is to encourage shared driveways, linked parking areas, where they're developed, looked at walkways and how to address walkways. And, for example, like here, this is a walkway between buildings. This garages, which would be permitted, how to dress them, have them be compatible with the building architecture. This particular garage has what's called liner buildings along the street frontage, and that's suggested as well. And there are other standards, including traffic calming, providing curb bump outs. Some of the things that have already been installed in Pearl River should be continued, the pedestrian crossings, kind of thing. Lighting standards are included. There have been improvements done in terms of lighting and sidewalk improvements in Pearl River, and that the recommendation is that should be continued. And parking lot lighting standards and building lighting standards are included. And other design standards, buffer, there's very detailed landscaping standards in the ordinance, and I will have to say that's my baby. I'm a landscape architect, so it's something that I like to encourage. So that would be augmented landscaping standards. And sustainability, building green, building environmentally sound, environmentally sensitive. So those standards are in the design guidelines. There are special standards, and I highlight these. This is for the the mixed-use residential 3 and the office residential 3. These are there are a number of very large properties like Dexter Plaza that if it was redeveloped, you likely would end up having multiple buildings on site, maybe building new roads and driveways through this area. So this particular section of the design guidelines talks about that, talks about building setback and how the internal roads would be designed, how parking should be designed. I highlighted Muddy Creek, which is not piped. in the northern part of the study area on the west side of the railroad, and protecting that, maybe looking at using that as an amenity should that area, the properties ever be developed there. So, and then finally, we provided some design concept, just so you can see, well, you have these guidelines, what does that mean? So we looked at 3 locations in Pearl River. One is this gateway, Central Avenue, Route 304 gateway. That's it now. You can see it's pretty open. There's a big parking lot on the, on the right, Dexter Plaza. You've got this commercial use, which Commissioner Gray had talked about putting back in the MU, mixed-use residential zone. But that's existing buildings there, restaurant and commercial buildings. What could happen if one of the property owners, and here I was looking at primarily Dexter Plaza, what happens if they decided to come in and redevelopment, what it would look like? So here it is. This is an aerial view. You can see the huge parking lot and businesses in that area, and the existing businesses on the left. And we looked at, these are the existing businesses, no change there, maybe adding in the vacant lot a cornered building, and adding new buildings along Central Avenue here. This is a corner building. Maybe changing the parking, there's angle parking on this side of Central Avenue, widening the sidewalk and making it parallel parking. What would that look like?
Just to be clear, this is if someone were to want to do something.
Yeah,
like this.
it's just-
We're not doing this,
Exactly.
just to be clear.
Just a concept,
Too many
but it's,
stars.
at least gets
It's
people's,
just what it could look like if someone decided to do the TOD level 3 in this area, not the town of Orangetown building these, just to make that 100% clear.
exactly.
for everyone.
This is
Okay.
just a concept.
Go ahead.
But it's good because it at least gives you some idea of what could happen and how this could be developed. This shows a gateway, corner building, corner buildings along 304, parking, curb bump outs, decorative pavement. Again, another view. And this is 304 on the and another view. This is a walkway between some of the buildings. We also looked at 2 other locations just for a concept. This is the entrance to the municipal parking lot on East Central Avenue. You can see these buildings are all the older 1-story retail uses. And 2- and 3-story buildings with the parking augmented, driveway augmented, adding more street furniture and planters and lighting on this area, creating a better entrance to the parking lot, the municipal parking lot in the back. And finally, we did one more, which was East Central Avenue near the fire station. And here you've got all 1-story buildings next to the fire station. Is the fire station. 1- and 2-story buildings on the other side. And the idea was, well, what could happen? And it could be this. Keeping the fire station, but adding new buildings that would be in keeping with the architectural guidelines of the area. And finally, the guidelines just looked at some, these are existing buildings in other towns, what other towns have done. These are 2-story mixed-use buildings, retail on the bottom, office or residential above. Streetscape improvements, trees, lighting, pedestrian improvements. These are existing mixed-use buildings, new, that were built 3-story, but similar to the guidelines that we're suggesting in terms of using high-quality materials. And finally, these are 3-story residential buildings, which would be permitted in the level 3 development. It didn't have to be just mixed use, it could just be residential. And open it up to questions.
Thank you very much, and I do want to
You're
thank
welcome.
Mazer and you for your teamwork and effort in getting this written. It was a lot of stuff to do. The whole ordinance, for anyone who wants to read it in detail, is included in the backup for tonight's meeting, which is available on the website for tonight's meeting. It also will be posted separately on the website for the town of Orangetown to review, especially going forward. The plan, theoretically, if we move forward with what this or some version of this would be, we don't have it unscheduled for a vote tonight to set the public hearing. We would schedule setting the public hearing, not the public hearing itself, a vote to set the first public hearing for the next meeting, and then that public hearing will be set at some future date to be determined, and then the public will be able to weigh in on, and we can modify as needed and make any changes and suggestions and whatever from that. Any questions? Well, the design team is here, gentlemen.
No, very thorough.
Nothing.
Thank you.
Good, so what we'll do is we'll let this simmer for the next week and a half, I guess it is, 2 weeks, and have on the agenda the setting of the public hearing for the next meeting, and we can vote on it then. And then we'll have the public hearings once that's so set. And anyone with any thoughts or feedback, please reach out, and we're coming to the next meeting, offer comment. Dennis, you have something?
I just am impressed by what was put together, but at the same time, in terms of public hearings, I think there would be a series of public
Yes,
hearings on
yes.
this. That's not just one, and
No.
bang, we're gonna vote. So
Absolutely. not.
Agreed
so-
with Dennis, and I don't think you should set anything until after the beginning of September.
Right,
No,
yeah.
and I agree with that also, Tom, because to have major discussions during the summer is not the time to do that. And I agree with Tom. It should be done sometime September, October, somewhere in there.
It's gonna take me a month to go through this stuff and look at it anyway.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't think
September's going quick.
we're gonna have to we set the public hearing, the first public hearing. Can we set multiple dates of a public hearing at one time, Rob? Is that allowed? Because if so, it makes sense. People can plan on which one to come to.
I guess, I mean, what we would do is really set a public hearing. You could set it next time or the time after for, it doesn't have to be, you can set it for
You can set it
September,
for
pick a
month
date in
and half, 2 months
September.
out, yeah.
Right, and then notice it, but, right, and it will continue,
And
so,
we'll be continuing.
right, and there's nothing preventing the board from posting, when it gets continued, posting it conspicuously on the website and sending out
But I'm saying,
mailers and
like,
things of
would it
that
be
nature.
possible to set a public hearing schedule so that people,
Absolutely,
like, because if I have to choose, like, where I'm gonna get a babysitter to come in, I'd like to know what days there are. If there's 3 public hearings guaranteed to be planned, for example, could we schedule that all next meeting for like September, 2 in September, 1 in October, something like that? And-
We could do something like that. The issue would be, what are you going to discuss at each one? Because are you going to move in stages? Is it just going to be, you start from scratch at the second one? You know what I mean? So we'll
Right.
have to decide how you want to
Maybe
do
break
it in terms
down
of
by time.
phasing.
Okay.
Because, obviously we have to do secra, and
Yeah.
we've already discussed that with Mazer when the time is right. But we can set a schedule, I guess, in consultation with Mazer.
Okay,
But it would have to be, what you plan at each one, really.
so we know what we're talking about.
Right, I mean, and frankly, if you do it the one, okay, set it September, whatever the middle of September meeting is, and then at that meeting announce, okay, we'll go back to October, or we'll go to November, whatever, that might be workable.
Later in September, and then 2 in October.
Right, exactly.
I did
All right,
my
so let's talk about it after, Rob, and we'll figure out the best way to phrase it for the next meeting for setting the schedule. All right, very good. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. One last presentation.
Let's do a 5-minute, just
You want to take 5 minutes to recap? All right. Motion for a 5-minute recess there, second.
second.
Second by Councilman Dibny, all in favor? All right.
Trying to rescue.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and, I forget, do I have to move us out of recess, or does it automatically happen? All right, can I move us out of recess there, second? Councilman Valentine, all in favor? All right, welcome back. We have one more presentation. It's new and fresh and interesting. This proposal, it's a petition for a zone change for Ryerson Farms LLC. This is a property on Route 303 in Blauvelt that is presently undeveloped and is split in zoning between LO and R40, and they're requesting a rezone to MFR and have a site plan and all sorts of other stuff. So Don Brenner is the attorney for the project. And
Okay,
that's-
thank you, Town Board, and I want to give you a brief history of the project. Again, the property that is being considered for the zone change is located in Blauvelt on the east side of New York State Route 303, south of the Town of Clarkstown, Orangetown boundary line, west of North Greenbush Road and north of Airflex. It is designated on the Orangetown tax map as Section 65.15, Block 1, Lot 1, and is divided into two zones, LO on the western portion and R40 in the eastern portion. Several developers had attempted to develop the parcel, a car dealership in 1999, a land developer who proposed 80,000 square feet of commercial building connecting to Route 303, coupled with 9 townhouse units connecting to Greenbush Road in 2009. Due to the fact that the area residents did not want traffic discharging onto North Greenbush Road and a history of archaeological finds on a portion of the property, the developers did not proceed with the approved designs. The applicant proposes to construct 68 condominium units facing Route 303 and an entrance and exit at an existing traffic light at the intersection of Al Foxy Way on Route 303. The design, which you have drawings of, by the way, you can open it up, the design shows a buffer area between the proposed units and North Greenbush Road on this land, and the buffer area will be deeded to the town of Orangetown. The property is presently non-productive, does not provide much needed tax revenue to the town or the school district. In 2019, the property paid tax revenue of $40,000. Based on similar tax levy against similar units in the town, the tax income per unit is estimated to be $15,000, netting an income of over $1 million. The town code MFR district would enable the developer to build a number of type units necessary to construct the project. The transfer is accessible with sound planning and would greatly enhance the economic viability of the area. I've given you the critical factors on the next page: site location, the size, the character, the effects on the site, public service, and benefits. The property is serviced by water, that's Suez. Sewer connection would be done through Town of Clarkstown, Town of Orangetown, and would use Rockland County Sewer District's facilities. Gas and electric would be Orange and Rockland, police would be the Town of Orangetown, and fire would be Blauvelt. The benefits, as previously noted, the developer would yield a tax revenue 25.5 times greater than the remaining revenue. It would bring sewers to one of the few pocket areas left in the town. It would bring new students to the South Orangetown Central School District, which welcomes the project. And if you take a look at Appendix B and what I gave you, we actually have a letter from the South Orangetown School District okaying the project. Based on that fact, we would like to ask the town to set a hearing for this public hearing change, which would permit the zoning to MFR and would be able to build these 68 units.
All right. Thank you, Don. So any thoughts or questions? Basically, we would just be setting a public hearing on this. I have met with residents in the area regarding it. There was not any negative reaction, really, from what I could tell talking to them, but obviously they have the opportunity to come in to express their thoughts in public hearing. And now, just to clarify, again, it's not on the screen for anyone, but there's essentially a driveway that becomes a strip going along what's now really the commercially zoned portion, and behind that, what's known as Dinosaur Park, or the area where they found some fossilized footprints. Oh, there we go, we got a big visual.
I'm sorry we did not mount it, we will get it for the
That's
public
okay.
hearing. But this would be a big map if anybody wanted to see it. You can see that 45% of the realty will be dedicated to the town of Orangetown, the buffer area.
So we'll get extra parkland out of it along the road. And right now, that area that's parkland, or would become parkland, is currently zoned to be single-family homes if someone was to build it along Greenbush, and that would change that. How many single-family homes would be able to fit on the property
There
right
would be
now?
68, not single-family homes, there would be 68
No, I'm sorry, under current zoning, how many would have been permitted? Single-family,
Well, we had a tentative approval to build 9 discharging onto Greenbush Road and 78,000 square feet of warehouse space.
and you got that tentative approval from the planning
Tentative
board
approval from
already
the
under
planning
current
board,
usage?
but economically, it was not sound.
Okay. Any questions for the applicants?
So the map shows a road going out to Greenbush, that's an emergency
That's
exit only?
strictly an emergency exit.
That'll be blocked off, it cannot be used for regular incoming and outgoing traffic?
Only the fire department would have the keys or things of that sort for that. It would be fenced off, and it would be, and the fire department would have keys. Very similar to what we did with the club.
Right.
6 to 8 units gonna be offered for resale or rental?
Only resale, no rental.
And now,
And,
yes, sir, good.
1 or 2 bedrooms?
That's what I was gonna ask.
Two
Two bedroom,
bedroom.
no
Two bedroom.
threes, no fours, twos, okay. Okay,
And I'm not sure if this was said, but it's 2 zones now. It's the,
yes, it's a split
Yes.
zone. So along 303, essentially, it's the LO, which is a fairly high density, high impact commercial use. And then along Greenbush, it's R,
Yeah, or-
30 or 40?
R40.
R 40. Yeah, there's been a lot of history to this property, a lot of back and forth, so, it is a well-thought-out proposal. So if everyone's okay with it, then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll go forward for setting a public hearing on it.
I'm just,
Rob?
I'm looking at the timing in terms of setting it, and the earliest you could set it, even if you voted on it tonight, would be August 20th. But again, I don't know if you have with a matter of this size, if you want to put it into September, you can.
September.
Or the first meeting in
It should
September?
be September.
The first meeting in September, which one's that? What's the date then?
I have the 3rd, is that accurate, is that right, Roseanne?
That could be it.
That's what I have on my phone, the 3rd and the 17th.
That sounds about right.
Right, so the 3rd is the day after Labor Day.
Yep,
Okay,
put it on for September 3rd.
September
So why
3rd.
don't we, what I would suggest, let's put it on next week for,
With all
for
the
next
language
time,
written
for
out,
language,
because we'll still
proper,
have time
appropriate
to
language
do it.
for the vote, and we'll set it for
Because we don't have it
September
written
3rd.
out on the agenda right now.
And
but-
we would distribute it, we have the secret forms, and I'll coordinate with Jane in terms of getting what we need to get.
All right, so we'll be voting to set the public hearing for the next meeting, anticipate it being for September 3rd. That way it's not, we don't have the whole, like, do it in August and do it again in September thing. It's just easier to show up when people are here.
Okay,
all right. Does that work?
Yes,
That fits your timeline, so we're good?
yes.
Okay,
All right,
Sounds good.
very good. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Appreciate the work you put into it. All right.
There will be a public portion, I don't know,
What's
this is
that?
a workshop meeting?
No, there's voting and public comment coming up very shortly. This was just a lot of presentations in this
Yes, so you will
meeting.
be doing public comment.
Yes. During the public comment period, you'll have the opportunity to raise your hand, and you get up to 3 minutes. It's about any topic in the world. You can stand up there and read Dr. Seuss if you want, but you have 3 minutes to do it. And we're almost there. I'm sorry, it's just a lot of presentations at this meeting. I know how frustrating that could be if you're here to do something. So first, what we're doing is we're going to go through what's on the agenda, talk about it briefly for voting matters, and then open it up for the public comment on any subject in the world, as long as it's not vulgar, and then we will go and vote on the things on the agenda. So, moving forward, the first agenda item is a resolution to award the bid for architectural engineering and space planning services for the town hall. We had talked about it as a board and had a long process, and I want to thank our department heads that were involved in that process. They put a lot of time to it, particularly Jane Slavin, our building department director, then Eamon Riley and Eric Gordon and Rob Magrino, everyone who's involved in this process. And did I leave out a department head who was involved in it? Rob, Eamon, Jane, Jeff Bensick, going in with the numbers. A lot of meetings involved, a lot of work, and drafting of RFPs. The blanks that are in here will be for Lothrop Associates at an amount of $749,000. And then moving to the next one, adopting Town of Orangetown Complete Streets Policy. This is related to, what was this from again? This has to do something related to the Rockland County intergovernmental thing, where we have to have a sort of policy on different types of streets. It's a county-level policy for shared services and such. Then we're accepting the resignation of a planning board member. We do not have yet someone to fill that slot. If someone is interested in being a planning board member, they can send a resume to supervisor@orangetown.com.
Yeah, you had a letter from,
All right, if we have
We
one
did have
letter,
one,
let's try to get as many people.
We want to hear it out for a little bit, especially this summer, but we did get one application.
yeah, he doesn't have a resume in there, but.
Yeah, we'll reach back out to him and get the resume. Yeah,
That's
so we
fine.
got one.
Come on.
And we'll obviously, of course, take more applicants. We've always tried to get a wide net for these things. It's an important job. And we thank Blythe for her service on the board for this time. Then we have a renewal of our lobbyist agreement with Brown and Weinraub, who have done a lot of work to get important legislation passed in Albany for us. Recognizing the appointment of the tenant representative to the Orangetown Housing Authority Board, Mary Mills. We don't have any appointing authority over that. We're just acknowledging that they have appointed it. Then an intermunicipal agreement for Pearl River District for Emergency Reception Center. Basically, it lets us use school district property in case there's a hurricane or other sort of disaster. 9 is a file a notice of claim against the Village of Upper Nyack. Essentially, there was some work done by Upper Nyack that damaged our sewers and caused problems, so we're gonna the only resolution to that is to file a claim against them.
Right.
Yeah, somebody filed a claim against the town
Yeah.
for a backup, and our investigation, or I should say Deemy's investigation, revealed that there had been some work, as you said, done by Upper Nyack, I'm sorry. So
Yeah.
this just authorizes us to file the notice of claim and proceed.
Basically, there was a clog, it caused the backup. The clog was caused by concrete that fell into our pipe, in our opinion, that was put in by the Upper Nyack, and we're just trying to make sure the right person pays for it, right government. Lend assistance for the Traubin Fest, a German festival, on Sunday, October 6th at the Masonic Fairgrounds. Then approve and accept donation for Brightview Senior Living Summer Concert Series. Brightview Senior Living is donating $1,000 towards the cost of our summer concert series, July 19th, Friday, July 19th, 2019. Then approve or renew the HVAC maintenance agreement with Johnson Controls. Another change order for the Blue Hill Golf Course pond renovation project. Then we're appointing Benjamin Gorzinski to the position of police officer permanent. He just graduated the police academy. He's not here because he is currently in his annual military service with the National Guard. So he'll have a ceremony another time, but congratulations to him on completing his academy. Then grab permission for Detective Myers to attend a Crimes Against Children conference, and it's a good conference. We just had briefed on it by the police chief. County's reimbursing travel and fees. We have just some sort of minor fee that he gets paid for traveling. We had a change in title for our top-ranked engineer in DME. It goes to Engineer 4. This went to Labor Management, a discussion about what extra would go in. After Labor Management, everyone felt that it was a fair decision for everyone. He had gotten a desk audit that indicated he needed to either get an upgrade or get jobs taken away from him. So the end result is a net benefit given that situation, though a slight raise in pay.
Eamon Riley is recommending this?
Yes, Eamon did not, no one recommended the actual increase. That was done through the process with county personnel where they get a desk audit done.
Don't we normally discuss this in private
Yeah, I would say
first?
so.
And, because we don't have to take their recommendation.
Well, we don't have to vote on it today if we want to discuss it
I don't
further.
want to vote on it.
That's fine.
I would agree with that, because I'd like to see what the differentiation is, from the current level to the new level, and, what is the town getting for that?
Yeah, not a problem. And most of this would be stuff we could discuss in executive session since it's related to personnel. So let's just hold this one over on voting to another meeting, and we'll discuss afterwards. Audit is the final one, and then the resolutions to adjourn. Going back to the beginning, do I have a motion to open public comment? Councilman Troy, second by
Second.
Councilman Divney, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, is there a sign-in sheet for public comment? I don't have one in front of me. I don't want to call people out of order. It'll be a riot in here.
Into September, I know.
Okay.
All right.
It's the most public comment we've had in quite some time, actually. All right, first up is Esther Baitler from Spark Hill. As she's walking up, I'll remind everyone you have 3 minutes. The clock is on the wall. Once it hits 3 minutes, the clock chime will sound. I know you know it, but not everyone else knows it. When the chime goes off, if you could please finish the sentence you're in logically. You don't have to stop like you hit a wall, but please don't also proceed to another semicolon, a semicolon after that. Just wrap it up at that moment. And when you step up to the podium, especially if you haven't signed in, please state your name and place of residence for the record. Esther, go
Are you
ahead.
ready?
You are
Yes.
ready. I am ready. Go
Good
ahead.
evening, Supervisor Day and town board members. Hi, my name is Esther Baitler, and I'm a very unique consumer who lives in Spark Hill. I feel very strongly that the governor should be ashamed of himself with the parole board for releasing a guy that killed a young woman. He should have been left behind bars. And I think everybody should send letters to the local officials, all the elected ones. This is, I mean, where is our safety?
I agree with you.
Does everybody on the board agree?
We do,
Yes.
absolutely. Please
And
proceed.
more importantly, Governor Cuomo, this is all his fault.
Yes.
It is. He should have not allowed this guy to get out.
It's all his appointments.
Yeah.
He
All
wants,
right.
he wants the jails to be
Uh,
cleaned out. I
Esther,
agree with you.
Just one thing I left off there.
That guy
It's
should have been left.
not a discussion at this point. Just keep going, Esther. You're good. Keep going. We agree with you, but continue, please.
Chris, that's not right.
I'm following the rules, and that's what I would just ask everyone to do, including the folks up here. So,
Thank you and have a great
Sorry,
night.
I
Thank
cannot
you,
not
Esther.
comment on that.
Thank you,
okay,
Esther.
thank you, Esther. All right, and yes, again, that was the one thing I left off the reading. We don't answer generally questions until the end of public comment, and then we respond. It's just a public comment period, not a discussion period.
Not on that one.
But on that one, we agree completely with what Esther was saying, of course. Elaine Armenienko? Armienko. I'm sorry. Go on.
Some people already know me. I was just telling Mr. Brenner that it's our 20-year anniversary. July 22nd, 1999 is the first night we met, when a car dealership proposal was put before what is now known as the dinosaur property, which seems to have been fairly left out of the conversation this evening. I have letters from some people who couldn't attend. They asked me to drop off, and I made copies for you.
Sure.
As well as I have a page from our current comprehensive plan that indicates in our current Orangetown master plan that the 17 acres site that we've been talking about tonight, where dinosaur tracks were located, is protected, should be protected as open space. That's in our current master plan, FYI.
No, it's not. Go on.
So one of my questions is, will there be a more expansive secret review than what's been presented tonight? Because there's some holes and some misinformation in that information that's before you. And coincidentally, that was true 20 years ago. Those admissions were ignored by the ZBA when they granted a use variance and caused the residents of my neighborhood to put forth an Article 78 appeal, which we were victorious in, and we spent a lot of money, tens of thousands of dollars in fundraising, and so will this board do its due diligence? Will you dot your i's and cross your t's? Because my experience and our experience with this process is that that is not always the case. You know, the other reason the Article 78 was victorious had to do with the hardships. I just want to remind you that the new owner, Mr. Cunny, certainly knew about the split zone when he purchased the property. He certainly knew about the unique characteristics because we met with him personally. He certainly knew that there were dinosaur tracks and that it was on the open space. He knew all of those things. So looks to me a little bit like a self-created hardship by purchasing this and then wanting to develop it. It's true, I'm a bitter person a little bit. This has been a bitter pill for me. The democratic process was ignored for 20 years, and proposals have come and gone on this property, and thankfully, because we did discover these dinosaur tracks, we've remained visible to certain organizations. One of them is the Open Space Institute, who proposed purchase of this property back in, I don't know, a couple of years ago. And that was also ignored by the town board.
Thanks.
I'd like to just also say that, you know, I wear two hats here today. One is as a representative, as the chairperson of the Greenbush Neighborhood Coalition, and the other is as a mom and a homeowner. And most of what I just shared to you before, part of what I shared to you had to do with being a mom and a homeowner, but I do have a list of some of the concerns from our coalition members that I would like very much to be able to read.
You're not going
And
to...
if I cannot, then I will give them to somebody else to read.
Please do, yes, thank you.
But then I will just leave you with the fact that if you do consider this proposal, you don't need to consider the MFR proposal for the whole 17 acres. Just consider it for the part that they want to develop
Thank you.
and not the open space
Thank you.
plan.
Just to be clear about what we're talking about, and thank you for your time, I appreciate it.
And just by the way, there was some concerns,
Yes.
Chris.
I know, I didn't say there weren't concerns.
Well, you didn't say there were, you said it was favorably.
I thank you for your
Okay.
time. I said that there was no Jed stop concerns, and I was present for the meeting. I'd be happy to share every word that was shared in it, which was essentially that you would prefer us purchase it as parkland, but we said we're not on the list to purchase as parkland because it's currently private-owned property. And that of the proposals you have seen, this was the best one you had
I
seen
didn't
thus
get to
far.
that, but it is on my.
That was what was said.
It is on my.
So I'm just relaying
thing
what
that I
was
was
quoted
going
in the
to say.
meeting. And thank you for your time again at the podium, but if you're going to imply that I'm hiding something from a meeting, the words that were said by the
I
residents
didn't
were...
imply that. I just want to
The
make
words that were
sure
said
that,
is that it was the best of the proposals you had seen, though it wasn't the one you would prefer, which is it stay all parkland, which it's not yet.
because it's in our open space
Thank you for your time at
comprehensive
the
plan.
podium. I appreciate your comment. It is not, before anyone else comes up to speak about this property, I want to make something clear. One, the public hearing isn't open yet, so these are not formal comments on the record for this. You're going to have to offer the comments once the public hearing is open. All we've done is listen to a petition and say we will vote to set a hearing on it, to then hear concerns. We appreciate your concerns. It's why I had that meeting with, I think it was 8 or 9 residents, to hear them in advance, to get a sense of what everyone thought. And I did not gloss over any aspect of that meeting. We went into very great detail about all the concerns and about the fact that there are concerns with this project, but they were within the level of, it's a privately owned parcel that's currently zoned for R40 and LO, and there are certain uses that the town cannot prevent in that area. This will not be a choice between a park or this. It'll be a choice between by right uses and this. So that's what the choice is. Further to the one question about making MFR, any area that would be ceded to the town in a situation to become parkland would not be MFR. So the area with the dinosaur tracks along Greenbush, with the majority of the dinosaur tracks, if it were to become parkland, would be parkland. It wouldn't be MFR. The zone would apply to the privately held parcels. So there's not a dichotomy here between making this a park and making it multifamily housing. It's allowing the private owner of the property to do what it's currently zoned for, or allowing something different to be done based on a zoning, which has nothing to do with hardship. It's a request. We're going to listen to the request, and we will take the comments, and everyone's more than welcome to offer their concerns again now, and in the 3-minute timeline for public comment. But there's going to be a public hearing on this, and then that's when it really, really matters, because that's going to be on the record for this project. This is just general public comment. So make that clear going forward with the rest of the comments. Fran Oldenburger from Blauvelt on the same subject.
Hi, my name is Fran Oldenburger. I'm from Blauvelt. I am here as a private citizen, but I was on the original committee for the open space. I helped start it. And then I am still on the environmental committee with the town. And I just wanted to remind you that both the open space committee, the Orangetown Environmental Committee, OPDAC, Comprehensive Plan for Orangetown, Comprehensive Plan for Rockland County, and the state paleontologist has said that this property is extremely valuable to the state of New York. I wanted to just give you that information as a reminder, okay? This is not the usual piece of property. I wanted to read just a couple of little excerpts. I'm sorry I'm not as prepared as I usually am. Don't read my emails as much as I should. So I didn't know about this until almost the last minute. Dr. Olson originally found the piece of property and the footprints that were originally removed back in the 70s. He is now a world-renowned paleontologist over at Lamont Doherty. The property was again looked at by him in 2008. It is considered, I'm going to read a little bit. It's going to be excerpted. If you want to take a copy of the full article, I can give it to you to make a copy of, and then you can, give it to the board if you wish. All right, so he said that the acreage still has fossils on it, and it is, in fact, from the original discovery, he said he found 26 more points of interest that year. In a report that he submitted to the planning board, he said there are 3 basic classes of fossils that are found at the site: reptile footprints, possible teeth and bone scraps, and natural casts of plant roots and trunks. He said of the 2 areas surveyed, the one with the initial find that is made has been damaged, possibly by private collectors, while the second area has more exposed features. They are exposed. Right now they're covered. I don't know why. And more exposed features, and that would yield more fossils. All righty. Let's see. There was another piece by Dr. Landing from he was the state paleontologist, but we don't have one at the moment that we know of. All righty, and he said if any single property in southern New York should be preserved in perpetuity for its paleontological significance, it is the Blauvelt's dinosaur property. He said that the site is far more than a known occurrence of dinosaur tracks. It has all the information that is in situ, stumps and dinosaur teeth, and it is ancient habitat and ecosystem of eastern New York. I just wanted to let you know this property is totally unique. You will never have a chance to look at it again if this is destroyed. All righty?
Thank you.
Just wanted to let you know there are no more dinosaurs to make footprints.
So I've heard. Deanna, I'm sorry, is it Lamb Hut or Lambert? Lamb Hut? Okay. From Blauvelt. Yes.
I'm always concerned about a zone change, and I really have a question for the board. Is this zone change only connected with this project? If anything happens to this project in the middle of it, or it's something they pull out and the zone change has gone through, I'm concerned, and I wonder what would happen then. Does the zone change go away, or can somebody else come in and then use this zone change to build bigger and more dense populated projects?
We can answer that if you are complete with your question as a comment.
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you.
That's why I don't have to worry about the buzzing.
Good. So I'm going to stop it then. There are caveats within a zone change that can make it tied to a site plan, or tied to the execution of that site plan, and also covenants that can be put on it at the time when we get to the point of making decisions.
So that's possible.
It is
Yes.
entirely possible, yes.
And it would be done.
And it would be done. We wouldn't
Oh,
just give a,
thank you.
blanket whatever
I
you
can
want.
sleep tonight, thank you.
That is good. It's important. It's getting late.
It is
Thank you.
very-
Victor, if I get it right this time, Armaniaco, I just heard it, correct? No, wrong? Did I get it right?
Yes.
And it was said already once, I just don't know if I got it right that time. Victor, did I get it right?
Yeah, Victor Armaniaco.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Everybody stumbles.
Go ahead.
Okay, thoughts from the members and friends of the Greenbush Neighborhood Coalition regarding the Orangetown Town Board, whether the Orangetown Town Board should consider the proposal for the townhomes at 636 Greenbush Road. What has the town done to protect the parcel as open space as stated in the master plan? Will the town reach out to paleontologist Dr. Paul Olson and review his map of the highlighted areas of interest for further study where more dinosaur tracks potentially could be found? He said he would speak to you guys. Can the number of homes be reduced? Will the sewer and water facilities be available to Greenbush Road residents as we are mostly septic and well in the vicinity? Could this be a benefit to those on Greenbush Road residents? Will the road that Fesco Fence uses to park their cars be eliminated? What are the plans for that? Mr. Broski has promised area residents that all the concerns would be met and written into the agreement. How does that process work? Will the project require any blasting? Will the town board oversee the building of the project, or will the planning board? Will there be a liaison who will help us make sure the planning board is listening to the concerns of the residents? What size bond will Mr. Broski has to put up? It should be substantial. He seems confident that these homes will sell for over $500,000, but what if they don't? What if the project fails? What if he sells to a new developer with lower standards? Who will protect the trees that will be, so they will not be cut down on the open space parcel that will run along Greenbush Road? And finally, in a meeting with the coalition supervisor, they suggested the town board be given first right of refusal if the project goes south. If Orangetown prepares to commit to buying Mr. Brodsky out if he fails, so it doesn't fall into the hands of a developer who may not have Orangetown's best interest in mind. Orangetown Town Board was not willing to come up with any money and partner with the Open Space Institute when it expressed interest in purchasing the property just a few years ago. That's all I got to say. I got it in my time.
So only a couple of questions. Generally speaking, the process is the public hearing. And of course, the public hearing, all these concerns can be heard again and responded to by the applicant and then modified, and the thing can be adjusted by the board. We're not going to get into that process tonight, though. Tonight is, I'm not going to invite them to go respond and come negotiate. We're not on the record yet. We can't even really legally do that. We're waiting for the public hearing to do it. But there is a process by which any sort of caveats or binding things, or first right to refusal, or if you don't develop the whole thing, the other part reverts to a different zone or something like that. That's all stuff that can get done in the course of the public hearing process. And they're all things that we're open to considering to make sure this is done the right way. So again, we're not going to do it tonight because we can't do it tonight, but we will be going through that, and it will be done in the right way when we get to the hearing portion. All right. Anyone who is not signed in for public comment that would like to speak? Mr. Mandel.
Good evening, Supervisor Day, members of the Town Board. My name is Michael Mandel, resident of Pearl River. Just two quick questions. Item number 6, for $48,000 that we want to approve for our lobbyists, what exactly have they accomplished during the last year for the town and its residents during 2018? It'd be nice to know. I ask this every year, and just to see what they've done for us. We're paying them money. Hopefully, we're getting some results. And secondly, in the audit section on the last page, items 1 and 2, regarding Applied Golf, Blue Hill, and Broad Acres, what savings were realized as a result of these contracts over what it would have cost us if the town had continued to run these operations? I think a year or two ago, it did save us money, but is it continuing that way, or should we revert back to the town operating these two facilities? So, thank you for your time.
Thank you. I'm going to ask if there's anyone else for public comment before I address those questions.
Right here. Oh,
Eileen had her hand first up.
And then this gentleman right
And then we'll go in the back.
I'm here to talk about, I would like to know whether or not the contract that the town has with Cablevision is current, or has it lapsed and it's just sitting somewhere in a file, and it hasn't been reviewed again for the sake of the people of Orangetown. I have Cablevision, and I just switched over to Altice, which I would not recommend to anybody, really. Cablevision has constantly raises their fees, and if you don't go along with it, and you say, oh, can I do anything better, then they take away programs that you originally wanted. We pay a lot of money. Some people pay well over $200 a month for Cablevision, and from what I can see with Altice, as far as now, when they put it in, the box that I got in my family room where I watched TV wasn't working properly, and I called them up, and the man came, second man came, and he said, oh, I have to replace this box. There is something wrong with it. And then he said, oh, the box outside should have been changed. It was never changed. Well, I don't know. And anyway, that's okay. So the next month I got my bill, and I got an $80 charge. And I'm fighting with them now because I said, you gave me material that was not up to par. And why am I paying $80 for this? So anyway, I would really like to know, because I remember the last time Cablevision's contract was like 10 years. It had been sitting around the town. And finally, I gave a little bit of pressure, and finally, somebody finally looked at it. Cablevision, BIOS, those contracts are important. They should be paying the town a heck of a lot of money, considering what they charge for the minimum amount of money that it pays to have Cablevision or one of these things that provide service to our homes. I'm from the generation where you had 2, 4, 7, 13, no charge. And then all of a sudden, there was Cablevision, and you had to pay for this, and you have to pay for that, and it's all repeats on television, and it's pure garbage. Especially marriage after lockup, that really is a hike. That's really one for the books. And I agree with Esther about the fellas that want to get released from prison. One guy might go back. That's the good news I heard last night. The other guy is not getting out. That's even better news. And anyway, we should release the names of those people who are the people that sit on the parole board. Let's know who they are, where they live, and let's see if they like the heat that gets put on them.
Thank you, Eileen.
Sounds good.
All for that. And it is, we as a board did, we've passed 2 resolutions opposing these releases, and we supported the march, and fortunately, one wasn't released, but it's just this terrible decision overall. Sir, in the back, you've been waiting very
Well,
patiently.
he's coming up. Tom Divany and I have been on this committee for
Yes.
the last 12 years to keep these guys in jail and spent a lot of time on this thing. And unfortunately, as Tom said, Andrew Cuomo stuck it to us. That's what he did. And really did the same thing to Mrs. Boloveski. Absolute disgrace.
You weren't signed in, so if you could please read your name to the record,
Sure.
and we'll go from there.
My name is Joseph Levine. I am a resident on Greenbush Road near the proposed plan of the dinosaur land. I don't know what we call it, but I just wanted to, I'm not that familiar with the public hearing process, and I know that you're tentatively setting a public hearing, it sounds like, for September 3rd, right after Labor Day. I don't know, I know that I'm just learning about this, and I was just away. I know there's a lot of other residents in our neighborhood that definitely have a lot of concerns about this parcel and about the development of that land, both for its significance as a paleontological site, but also for the impact it has on the neighborhood. And, the change from what I guess it's currently zoned to 68 townhouses sounds to me like a pretty big lift and a pretty big shift to that kind of zoning. So I know that I have concerns, and I know there's a lot of other neighbors that have those kind of concerns. So I guess I'm just stepping up to say that, and also request maybe if you could shed a little bit more light on what that means as far as having a public hearing on September 3rd. Is there then some back and forth at that point so that people can get up to speed, know more about this proposed development or zone change in a public setting, and have an opportunity then, you were saying, to speak publicly or comment publicly on the record? Is there then some other back and forth before this gets approved or disapproved? And what does that process look like, both for myself, for my own edification, so that I understand this, but also so that I can speak to other neighbors, so that they can learn what we need to learn and have, an educated opinion and be able to express that to you publicly, to the developer who wants to change the zoning, and so that we can be involved in this process, because we really do care a lot about our neighborhood and
Thank
about
you.
our town.
Thank you very much, and I'll
Yeah.
definitely explain all that,
Yeah,
absolutely.
thanks.
Is there anyone else for public comment before I do get to that explanation? Doesn't look like it. Everyone else seems to be an employee. Okay, motion to close public hearing?
Moved.
Public comment, sorry, by Councilman Divney, second by Councilman Valentine, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, just a couple of touch-ups.
I got one quick.
Go ahead, Dennis.
One of the earlier speakers said that over the 20 years, the democratic process has been ignored. I've been here for the 20 years, and for 20 years, nothing has happened with that property. It's come here before the board many times. I noticed the dinosaur property, and Mr. Omianko's been here many, many times over my tenure. To say democratic process was ignored is, to me, just an absolute insult, and I resent it.
Also, I do want to make clear that that Article 78, which, was won, and I'll grant it was a great job by the residents in doing it, it was based on a zoning board decision to issue a variance, if I recall correctly. It wasn't a town board vote. The town board didn't vote on the thing that was Article 78. It was the zoning board. So even Councilman Troy, who was here, there was nothing done at this level ever on this property to make anything happen on that property. So, touching on things, while we're still on that subject, like, I understand this is new for everyone that's involved with this, especially folks who weren't here for, previous times of this property. Public hearing is set at the next meeting. All we will be voting to do is schedule a public hearing and send out notices to different levels of government, different agencies, and neighbors about the intent to have this public hearing and when it's scheduled for. At that point, neighbors in a certain radius will get an actual notice sent to them. There'll be postings around the buffer of the property, and it will be told, essentially, this is when it's scheduled for. A public hearing is opened at that time. It does not automatically close on that day, and nothing is automatically happening on that day in terms of a vote. There will be a much more in-depth presentation by the developer and the petitioner about what they want to do, the discussion by our experts, by our building department, presentation about what could be done if we don't approve this. So example, what's the by right use, meaning what could they do right now today with us doing nothing? Right now it's zoned for certain things. So right now today, if someone wanted to go and put 9 houses on Greenbush, they can, for example. It may not be something they want to do, but they can legally do that without us doing anything. This is to change that. Then it will be a discussion, once the presentation by our building department is done and by the applicant is done, it's open for public comment. You have 5 minutes per person at that point. And then on that day, as many people are here, we'll be able to go. The town board will go and discuss and bring back up the applicant to address questions and concerns, and then address any ones we may further bring up. If at the conclusion of that day's scheduled public hearing, there's no sense that there's a resolution yet or there's material changes to the plan, then it'll be scheduled again and continued, as they call it, for a period a certain number of weeks out. It would be 10 days usually, I think is the minimum, right?
Be it 2 weeks, or if it has to be recirculated, it'd be 30 days.
Depends on the
things of that
change,
nature.
but a minimum 2 weeks, potentially a month out from then, for a second public hearing, because there wasn't enough resolution on the first one. And then when that's all wrapped up, there's a vote to either do it or not do it. And if it's not done, the zoning stays the way it is. If it's done, the zoning changes to what it's going to be, with whatever caveats are added by the board at that time. It will be followed. It can't legally not be followed at that point. Then you could do an Article 78 against the town board, because it has to be done in a certain way.
Can I just add something? to
Yes,
that?
go ahead.
All right. Dennis is right. The last time they came in here about the property was 5 years ago. We had a presentation. There was never a hearing scheduled. We didn't even consider it. It was a project that the board as a whole said, this is not the right project for this property. So we made that decision. This presentation, I mean, we don't have all the information, but it's a lot better than the last one. So we'd like to hear more information. That's why we're scheduling a hearing. No one's made their mind up on this board about what we're doing with this property, but we do want to hear more from the developer. We want to hear more from the residents. And the way you do that is you have a hearing. And as Chris said, we'll have the hearing on the 3rd. Everyone will have an opportunity to be heard. and we'll be waiting for comments from various boards throughout the county. If we don't have enough information or we don't have comments from them, we might adjourn the hearing for 2 weeks, we might adjourn it for a month, but we're gonna get all the information from the developer and from the residents, and based on that, we'll make a decision. But I haven't made a decision, and no one on this board has made a decision, but we do want to hear more information, and that's why we're scheduling a hearing.
Exactly. This is just the mechanism by which you learn more.
And also for residents that cannot be here on the 3rd, they're more than welcome to give their concerns in writing, and it will be distributed to all the board members, and it will be read into the record, and we'll consider all of those comments and concerns also. So there are residents who may be away, may be on vacation, they're welcome to submit in writing their concerns.
Or if you have 10 minutes of things to say and you only get to 5, submit your written comments. They're all in the record.
One more. And as a board, as long as I've been on here, we purposely have made it so that important topics of discussion are not scheduled during the summertime because a lot of people are away. That's why we're waiting until September when everyone's back for the beginning of school. And that's a policy that's been here since I've been on the board for almost 10 years, and it's a better way to allow all the residents to be here to discuss this important issue.
That's about it. There was a couple of minor ones. Mike, the lobbyist, it's $4,000, just to make sure it's clear for everyone, it's just $4,000 a year. They have done several things, $4,000 a month, sorry. They have been working for legislation. We got a parkland alienation bill passed last year that'll allow us for more flexibility if we do a land sale at the RPC site. They got us the base proportion shift bill that puts a ban to prevent too much property tax from shifting to the residential taxpayer from the commercial if the valuations change. They've helped us out a lot with the DEC at the state level for this sewer process. We're trying to fight that $40 million mandate. They've earned their keep, and they're doing a good job, and they're responsive. So, I personally think that they're doing a good job. And, frankly, Albany is a mess to navigate, and if you don't have someone up there helping you, the county's already decided not to have one, and I think it shows that the towns are picking up the slack because we need a little guidance up there. I had to go up myself along with him last year to get some extra juice through the cycle. So it's money well spent in my mind. And then Applied Golf has saved a lot of money on it. Jeff, you have the exact numbers?
Yeah. All right, Mike, just to be clear and exact, in our 2018 audited financials, Broadacres did lose $231,000. The good news is that Blue Hill made $237,000 operating profit. So net combined, the golf course has made $6,000. Now, this was in a very bad year. Combined, the two golf courses' revenues were down $350,000. If you compare it to where we were before, on an operating profit basis, again, we were up $6,000. Before we did this, we were losing $700,000 to $800,000 a year. And we did this over 5 years ago. You have 5 years, our personnel costs would have been increasing. They actually went down by having Applied Golf instead of continuing to be municipally run. We would have healthcare up 10% a year for each of those 5 years for those employees, workers' comp up that or more, and obviously the salary increases of 2.5% a year times 5 years, 15%. So what we have done is we have stabilized our cost basis for these. If we have a bad year weather-wise, we'll have a bad year. But even in our worst year so far, we're basically break even. So net, it's still a win versus where we were losing $700,000-800,000. And if we were doing it ourselves now, we'd be losing $1.2 million, easy.
Per year.
I disagree with that, but I voted for it. But a lot of that was we paid off the bond. A lot, and
no, Tom.
Yes, because
that's after. Operating profit is before the bond.
I voted for the Blue Hill, but what I said with Broadacres is exactly where it really hasn't changed with the Applied Golf, and I knew it when you guys did it. I agreed with it for Blue Hill, but we wouldn't be losing that kind of money because Eric had already done a lot to bring the cost in.
I don't think you can be losing that if it was just Broad Acres, but I think the fact is that Broad Acres is not a very commercially viable course.
No, it's not.
The
It never-
Blue Hill
it-
is a
it
commercially
never
viable
was,
course.
but-
But it lost money every other year.
Yes.
This is the first year it's lost money under a flag golf. It
Right.
made money the first.
I don't know
3
that's correct.
Well, that is correct. I can tell you. It's an-
Broad
Right,
Acres, that's
well-
not correct.
Thank you.
Combined, it's
Combined,
correct.
it used to make
Combined,
sense, yeah.
combined.
Broad
The
Acres has
other
always been
point,
a
Jeff,
loss.
that you made is with bad weather,
Yes.
last year, we lost money on Broad Acres. This year is far worse. This year, the rain has been unbelievable, and there were all sorts of drainage issues there, so the numbers are gonna come in worse this year, so.
I could say
So
the weather
Better that
is-
it's applied golf rather than run.
And they have
The costs
penalties.
are-
They're doing the best they can. They have penalties if they don't hit their marks.
Exactly, and then the costs are lower than they would be. It's definitely, Jeff, the numbers are the numbers. We would, even if you don't project them forward to 1.2, we were losing 800 before, and now we're at break even on a bad weather year. I will say, as a car wash owner, it definitely was a bad weather year for everyone that needs good weather for things, so hopefully the rest of the summer stays dry for town and for.
And just to be
me.
clear, the debt service with the bond is after the operating income. That's the true value of where the profit and loss is for the company.
Right.
Or not for the company, for the town.
Entity, yeah. All right, thank you, Jeff. And the Cablevision contract, Eileen, is still in effect, I believe, right?
I'd take a look at it, Eileen, but
It still is not
it's, right.
lapsed. They would be knocking on our door if it was lapsed, because they wouldn't have their franchise rights. All right, I think that addressed everything. Moving on to the voting portion. First motion, or first agenda item to vote is to award the architectural engineering for the Orangetown Town Hall for Lawthorpe Associates, $749,000. We don't have the dollar in total cost of, yeah,
The date of the award, the bid was May 1st,
dated May 1st,
2019.
2019. We put the bid and then the revised.
Right, and the revised, we can add that, in
Right.
tomorrow. Exactly, the exact date. Do you have it handy, Jane? Jane has it handy. She can,
If you could just pass that off to Rosanna, because I
what's the
don't,
date? If you could just let us know.
so she could write it down. May 1st proposal date, June 24th revised
June 24th
proposal.
was the update, okay.
Okay, and the total cost is $749,000. Is there a motion on this particular one?
I'll make a motion.
Councilman Valentine, second by Councilman
Second.
Troy,
And I-
Divany.
Yeah, I'll vote for it, but I still don't know if I'm voting for the new town hall, but I'll vote for these guys because they are the best.
That's fair. It's important. Thank you, Tom.
But I still haven't, you still haven't convinced me to vote for the new
That's
town hall.
reasonable. We're being reasonable.
But I will vote for these because these are the best bid we had.
Very good. All right. See, we're all working together today. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? None. Okay, good.
There you go.
Resolution for the Town of Orangetown Complete Streets Policy. Is there a motion?
Sure.
Councilman Divany, second by Councilman Batari. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Accept the resignation of Blythe Yost from the Planning Board. Is there a motion?
Move.
Councilman Divany, second by Councilman Troy. All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution to approve the renewal agreement for Brown and Weinraub.
Moved.
Councilman Divany, second by Councilman Troy. All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution to recognize the appointment of Mary Mills as the Orangetown Housing Authority Board tenant representative. Is there a
I'll make a
motion?
motion.
Councilman Valentine, second by Councilman Troy. All in favor?
Aye.
Get you the next one, Dennis. Approve intermunicipal agreement with the Pearl River High School District, Pearl River School District. Yeah, sure.
There's Mary Mills is coming on the Housing Authority. She's replacing Patricia Brown, who was there for 23-plus years, 24 years, as the tenant representative. Tenant representatives at Courtwood is a tough job, because what happens is they're there every day, and all the other residents can come and make suggestions, complaints, or whatever. And Patricia Brown, right up, she's on oxygen, still coming to the meetings, still working in the benefit of the Courtwood Village. So we as a town honored her at the last meeting. She's now in Dowling. She's out of Courtwood Village, but just a terrific lady. So just want to make that point.
Thank you, Dennis. Moving on to the next item, this is the intermunicipal agreement, the Pearl River School District for Emergency Reception Center. Is there a motion?
Moved.
Councilman Divany, second by Councilman Batari. All in favor?
Aye.
File notice of claim against Upper Nyack.
Moved.
Councilman Divany, second by Councilman
we hooked up in Nyack. We took over their sewer maintenance going back.
Yes.
Could be 15 years ago. So they should be doing the right thing here.
Exactly.
If they messed it up.
Who
they should
voted on that one? Not anyone? Oh, you did.
I think Dennis was there when.
I did as a matter of fact.
Thanks, Dennis.
I'll take the blame on that one, but I want to make sure they pay.
You know what, in that case, can we let Dennis move this, so we can get a little bit of the money
Yeah,
back?
yeah.
Dennis moves it, second by Councilman Divney, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Resolution to lend assistance for the Traubin Fest, Sunday, October 6th, fun event. Motion? Councilman Batari, second by Councilman Valentine, all in favor?
Aye.
Resolution to accept $1,000 from Brightview Seniors Living for the Summer Concert Series, July 19th.
Moved.
Councilman Divney, second by Councilman Valentine, all in favor?
Aye.
Approve renewal of our HVAC maintenance agreement with Johnson Controls, is there a motion?
Moved.
Councilman Divney, second by Councilman Batari, all in favor? You guys are gonna have to pull the trigger quick, Tom is moving quickly here. Resolution to approve a change order for Blue Hill Golf Course pond renovation, motion? Troy, second by Valentine, all in favor?
You guys get in there.
Resolution to appoint Benjamin Gorzinski to the position of police officer permanent effective July 10th. Councilman Troy, second by Councilman Batari, all in favor?
Aye.
Resolution to grant permission for Detective Myers to attend a conference for crimes against children. Motion. Councilman Divney, second by Councilman Valentine, all in favor?
Aye.
We're gonna skip 16, and then we're gonna move on to the audit.
Not a lot. This is one pager, Jeff. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Does he do 9 out of 12?
Okay. The audit for tonight's meeting consists of 5 warrants for a total of $1.4 million. First warrant had 42 vouchers for $204,000, was for utilities. Second warrant had 1 voucher for $2,000 and was for NeoPost postage. Third warrant had 198 vouchers for $183,000 and was for Medicare reimbursements. The fourth warrant had 5 vouchers for $156,000 and was for utilities and copier contracts. And the fifth warrant had 234 vouchers for $822,000 and the following items of interest. Number 1 and 2, the applied golf contracts. Number 4, Goosetown, $23,000 for police equipment leases. Number 5, Jet Industries, $104,000 for sewage treatment upgrades. That's bonded money. Number 6, PFK O'Connor Davies, $24,000 for the accounting services. Number 8, Sherwin-Williams, $16,000 for highway paint. Number 10, the comptroller, $43,000 for justice fines. Number 11, Tilcon, $50,000 for highway materials. And number 12, Turco Golf, $89,000 for the Blue Hill Bunker project.
Should have bet on that one.
Any questions on the audit?
Questions on the audit?
Nope.
No questions on the audit. Thank you, Jeff. Is there a motion on the audit?
Moved.
Councilman Troy, one on that one. Councilman Divney with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, anything else before we adjourn? We have several folks to adjourn in memory of, and I will read them off, then anyone wants to chime in with more specific details. Charles Cremens
Charlie Cremens.
of Pearl River.
Great guy.
Noreen Hansen of Orangeburg. Thomas Hogan of Tapan. Andrew McDonough of
Andrew
Pearl
McDonough.
River.
Great guy.
Ted McLean of Pearl River. Cormac Murray of West Nyack.
Great guy.
Noreen Quinn of Tapan, retired nurse from Rockland Psychiatric Center and Englewood Hospital. And Harry Toop, our own town attorney, Rob Magrino's father-in-law, resident of Pearl River. Sorry for your loss, Rob. All these folks passed away recently, so we would like to adjourn the meeting in memory of them. Is there anyone else who's passed since the last meeting that you folks would like to add?
That's a long
It is
list.
it's
Lot
been,
of
we've
great
had
people.
Yeah, a lot of
better weeks than this in
When did
Orangetown.
Charlie
Yeah.
Cremens pass?
Charlie Crimmins, about 2 weeks ago.
Really?
All right, so I'm gonna move that we adjourn in memory of those aforementioned folks. And, we move to executive session to discuss personnel, contracts, and land sale, and I think that's it.
All right, we will not be
And then
coming.
immediately thereafter adjourn in memory of the folks that were just listed.
Moved.
Second by Councilman Divney. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much.